And Brandon, moving on into now the top three teams. We're looking at the number 3 team from last year, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And it's funny because like the Coastal was not as good overall as I would say the Atlantic was, where basically this is a team that was 5-6, didn't even make a bowl game, and they were the third best team in the Coastal. Really, Duke had a better overall record, but only won 3 conference games. The first thing I want to ask you about Georgia Tech is about their quarterback. We're going back to our roots, usually looking at the quarterback first in these previews. And the guy I want to ask you about is Taquan Marshall. Really did not have, to me, a good season last year. And I know that, like, people are going to say, Ricky, but it's the Georgia Tech flex bone, and this isn't going to be a team that requires their quarterback to throw for 20 touchdowns a season in this. But, like, I look at it and go, 37% passing is bad, right? Like, that completion percentage isn't good, right? Like, I'm not crazy for thinking that. Am I right?
No, you're not crazy for thinking it, and I also don't think that we should be crazy for thinking that Taquan Marshall could maybe get to 50% completion percentage this season. And if he can get to 50% completion percentage, Georgia Tech should be able to solidify themselves as the third best team on this side of the conference in the Coastal. And I think that's a reasonable thing to say because, I mean, look at what Marshall was able to do outside of passing. So passing, he had 927 yards, 10 TDs to 5 picks. On the ground, he had over 1,100 yards and 17 touchdowns. He accounted for 27 touchdowns for them. Only 10 through the air, though. If he could become a more viable threat through the air, he would really be something to this team. Not that he's not already. He is. But they could be so much better. They could put up so many more points. They could be so much more dangerous. That option would be so much more dangerous. But I don't know if he'll get there. 50% from a guy who was 37% this year, and in 2016 he was 100%. He went 1 for 1. But 50% might be asking a lot. How about 45? 45 would be a nice jump up from 37. Anything upwards would be nice. But you have to, I feel like, especially with a defense that is going to be going through a change because you're getting a new defensive coordinator, you're going to be going with a new scheme. Can it adjust to that? The offense needs to stay as good as it was, if not better. And that's why, again, 37%, I know that people will say, well, you know what? He's not a regular passer and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. He should be better than 37%, and you shouldn't be the person making that excuse that he's not a regular passer. You should be saying, yeah, if he was better, we'd be better. If he was better, we would be more competitive. We'd win more games. We'd move up in the Coastal, and we'd be able to be right there competing with Virginia Tech and with Miami. So you shouldn't be that fan that says, he's not a passer.
No, 50% is my bottom line for the completion percentage. And the reason why I say that is I'm looking at the stats for the starting quarterback that Georgia Tech had before Marshall. Between 2014 and 2016, they had Justin Thomas, who, funny, I just found out today because he hasn't really played that much because, one season in the NFL, is a wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not even a quarterback anymore. He's a wide receiver. And there's a reason for that because the Georgia Tech quarterbacks, like he's a guy who had 51% completion in his first year, 2014. 2015, his junior year, but second year starting, dipped down to 41%, then went back up to 53 in 2016. That 2014 year was also special because not only did he have a 53% completion, he also ran for over 1,000 yards. The only time he did that in his career. And also, you got to look at that year. He had 18 touchdowns through the air on top of 8 on the ground. So he wasn't just giving you 10 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns that year. The thing that you look at how that translates to record, 2014, they go 11-3. They lose the ACC championship game by 2 points to Florida State. They win the Orange Bowl against Mississippi State. Then that 2015 year, he goes under 50%. They go 3-9. Then in 2016, he goes back up above 50%. They're a winning record again, 9-4. So for me, I know a lot of people are saying, Ricky, you're trying to find a narrative here. You're trying to find what works. Well, from 2014, the numbers show you have a quarterback that throws over 50% of his passes, you have a winning record. So let's shoot for that. Let's shoot for it. Because when it came to the ground, when it came to this option, Georgia Tech didn't have any problems getting yards. They had Marshall was over 1,000 yards last year, and Benson was over 1,000 yards last year. Hell, Marshall had 17. I know people are going to say, Ricky, he only had 10 through the air. But, dude, he had 17 on the ground last year. Yeah, the running is great. If he could give me that this year, that would be phenomenal. But complete 20% more of your passes, which might lead to more passing touchdowns. And then this, like you said, could be a team that goes from, hey, we're third in the Coastal to, hey, Virginia Tech, hey, Miami, we're coming for you. Put us in the discussion as well. That's what one thing could elevate this team to, like you said.
Well, I think you look at 3 games last season where they led late in the game and they weren't able to hold on. The Tennessee game, Miami, and Virginia, where they all had a lead. They had a lead in all of those games later in the contest, and their defense kind of let them down there. But that's where you almost have to take a little bit of comfort in the fact that they've now got a new defensive coordinator. They're going with a new defensive scheme that's supposedly supposed to fit the personnel a little bit better. The players that they've got, it should be a better fit for all of them. And that's something that I think fans can take comfort in. But again, it's going to flip back over to the offense. This is a team that is very... I'm trying to think of the right word here. There's not a lot of... You can't make mistakes in this offense. You really can't.
You got to play a perfect game.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room for mistakes in this offense. Otherwise, it just goes to hell and it doesn't work.
No margin of error.
No, there's not. There's really not. When you look at it, there isn't, though. I mean, you cannot look across the country and tell me that there's another school that is doing exactly what Georgia Tech is doing, as good as Georgia Tech is doing it. There's not. Georgia Tech has been, for a long time, as long as I can remember, the team that ran the wishbone offense, and they've ran it well. They have run it very, very, very successfully. They keep that up. They continue with that. But then you add in Taquan Marshall, adding more from the passing game, bettering his percentage, getting more wide receivers involved, which is something that I'm a little weary of because I think the receivers returning this season combined have 5 catches amongst them. So that's not something to be, really giddy about. But this team, I know, has never been a team that's really relied on the receiving group, but maybe this is a season where you have to look and say, hey, maybe we do. Maybe we don't need to rely on them, but maybe we need to call upon them a little bit more. It's always relied on the people in the backfield, but maybe they do need to be able to air it out, stretch the field a little bit more, and at least show their opponents that they can do it, so they can't always be ready for the run.
Before I bring up the next thing I was going to ask you, I'm going to say something crazy. You ready for it?
Yeah.
This team, one upset I could see them pulling off this year, and I'm not saying like it's a for sure upset. I'm not hitting the upset special button. It's sitting over there. It ain't going to get touched. But I wouldn't be surprised if this team November 10th upsets Miami. Just like they upset, because I'm looking at it. They upset Virginia last year. It was a home game for Georgia Tech. This year, Georgia Tech's on the road. They went into Miami last year, only lost by a point. So
Should have won.
So for me, I look at it and go, man, with that being a home game late in the year, I am going to say it here on what we're doing this July 24th. If Georgia Tech upsets Miami, come back to this podcast and comment on it that I was right. I'm not going to say for sure that they're going to win because I like Miami, but I can see that being an upset for Georgia Tech, and I don't really like the schedule. I don't, because, yeah, they're playing some of the same teams they did last year. I don't like them playing Clemson again. They're going to lose that game. I don't like them playing Virginia Tech on the road. They're going to lose that game. Miami, I think they're going to lose, but like I said, that's the upset of a big team that I could see them having this year. And I don't like them playing Georgia on the road. Like, I get they're going to play Georgia. They're not going to schedule Georgia. You got to have the Georgia Tech rivalry at the end of the year. But, like, this schedule has a lot of tough games. Plus, like, that week 2 game, or their second game on the schedule, I should say, that's going to be a tough game against a team that was 10-2 last year under Charlie Strong. You're going into South Florida to play that game. Like, this year, I feel like Alcorn State should be a win. Bowling Green should be a win. North Carolina should be a win. Maybe Duke. Like, there's 3 for sures. And then it's like, what other wins can you sprinkle in? Because this is also a team on the defensive side. We mentioned it already with Pitt. Oh, yeah, they have a new guy coming in. They weren't happy with their defense last year. So now they're bringing in Nate Woody from Appalachian State. So this defense is basically going from a 4-2-5 system to just a straight up 3-4 system. Does that benefit them this year? Or do they struggle under a first-year coordinator in Nate Woody? Well, first-year coordinator for them.
I think it benefits them. Like I said earlier, I think that they're looking at a scheme that's going to be a little bit more friendly for their players and what they're going to be more comfortable in running.
Mm-hmm.
I see an 8-win team. I see a team that could win 8 games and possibly 9. And maybe I'm shooting for the stars, but Alcorn State, I think you win it. USF, I think you win it.
Okay.
Pitt, you win. Bowling Green, you win. Louisville, you win. Duke, you win. North Carolina, you win. Virginia, you win. You lose to Georgia. You lose to Clemson. You beat either Virginia Tech or Miami, maybe both.
I don't think you beat both. The only reason why the only reason why I say you don't beat both is I don't think this team wins. I don't think this team wins in Blacksburg, but I think they'll win at home. So that's why I'll say they could split those 2 games. But like, I'll kind of agree with you. The only thing I'll disagree with is USF, where Alcorn State, I'll double up on your Pitt game, double up on your Bowling Green game. Louisville, I didn't mention. Maybe it's because I'm stuck in the past. This isn't going to be our daddy's Louisville team. This is going to be our, like, it's exactly what's going to be.
It's going to be your crappy Louisville team.
Lamar Jackson is gone. Charlie Strong's been gone forever. This is not going to be the same Louisville team that we're used to. That could probably be a win. So, yeah, I could see it. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4. Duke is 5, North Carolina is 6, Virginia's a toss-up. So, like, you know what, that 3 games made it sound very pessimistic. I'm not as pessimistic on Georgia Tech as I am of the other teams that we've talked about. But it comes down to, what are you going to do against Miami? What are you going to do against VT? What are you going to do against USF? Because you're not beating Clemson, you're not beating Georgia. Like, Georgia, to me, national champion favorite, SEC champion favorite. Clemson, national champion favorite, ACC champion favorite. Like, you're not touching those 2 teams this year. They're just in a whole nother class from you, and I don't think you're going to touch them. But I could see maybe 6 to 8 wins on the schedule for this team. The 6 I listed, and then the toss-ups would be Louisville and Virginia if you're going to get 7-8 on the year. Anything you think we missed with Georgia Tech?
I think Georgia Tech is going to be a really exciting team to watch this year in the Coastal, because if either Miami or Virginia Tech, for whatever reason, struggle a little bit at some point, and Georgia Tech is doing really well, they're rolling, we could see Georgia Tech possibly overtake one of those two teams.
But not both.
Not both.
Yeah.
But I think that it would be really interesting to see that. And it could happen because this is a sneaky good offense with a quarterback who, if he plays a little bit more like a quarterback, while keeping everything else that he does in the running game, has a chance to be a really dangerous option for this offense, and somebody that could take this offense to the next level, certainly a bowl game, and possibly even competing for the Coastal.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Will Georgia Tech be improved this season? Will they challenge Virginia Tech and Miami for the top 2 spots in the Coastal? What do you see from this team in 2018? Let us know what you think down below in that comment section.